You got a mic? Well, I got a mic. We're in good shape.
We're good, yeah. We're good. Hey, everyone. Welcome. It's David here at Battling Beyond. I'm here with my friend, John Demartini, Dr. John Demartini. We've known each other for, I'm going to say, close to 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's been about 20 years since you've been coming to Calgary.
I think so.
Bruce, Dr. Bruce Hoffman and I encouraged you to come and visit, I think, the very first time.
Yep.
And neither one of us have aged a day. Actually, John's getting younger, and he's on his way back to 35. Is that true?
I'm almost 35. Actually, 65, but almost 35. Because at 50, I started going backwards.
Started going backwards. That's right. And I feel the same way. 60 is the new 40.
Yep.
It is. So John's in town this weekend to do what he does amazingly well, which is help people discover, I believe, the blocks in their psyche that are keeping them from having the freedom and being in the potential that they deserve and that they could be, and helping to dissolve those blocks and those belief systems and those stories. And you have your weekend breakthrough event?
Yep. I'm doing the breakthrough experience. I think it's 1,060 something time.
Everyone's different, right?
Yeah. Every one of them are different.
Yeah.
I love doing it.
I've been in John's breakthrough probably half a dozen times, and I guess I'm sicker than most. It's taken a long time working through the old beliefs, and John's been very patient with me. But you have a couple other things happening. Wednesday night?
Wednesday night I'm doing a presentation on how to bounce back from hard knocks, or when you have challenges in life, how to turn them into opportunities and use them to have more empowerment in life. And then the following night I'm doing something on activating genius and potential and waking up our genius.
Do we know where that event is, the Thursday night event, James? Teresa Hope is organizing that, and we'll figure that out. You pull that up and tell us so that we can. We'll have the links too. We'll put all the links for all of these on this talk today, and so that you can see where John's going to be on Wednesday night and Thursday night, and then Friday, of course, for the breakthrough. 16? Did you say 1,600 times?
1,067 or 8 or something like that.
Wow! And how did you get started? Tell us
on that program.
Well, even in the whole idea of
well, I've been teaching 46 years, and I had a dream to do that when I was just turning 18, and so I've been working on it for a while. If you do something long enough, you start to get the handle of it. And I've just been doing that. And the breakthrough experience I've done over 30 years now. And I've done that in 63 or 4 countries.
Wow.
64 will be soon.
Yeah.
And that's what I love doing. I love
You're in South Africa
people.
quite a bit, aren't you?
I'm in South Africa usually 4 or 5 times a year.
Nice.
Yeah.
And are you doing events in Europe as well?
Yep, we're in Europe, India, Asia. I've been in 150 countries, but I've done the breakthrough in 63, 64 countries.
Gosh, how many countries are there?
About 219, I think. I'm still working on them. I'm going to get them. We got some new ones this year too. So.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool.
We just did Serbia recently, and did Lithuania and Romania, and we got some things in Russia coming up, and so it just keeps growing.
Nice. So really, my experience with you is you actually help people to see the major blocks and to dissolve them through the process and the breakthrough. And rather than just teaching people to live with gratitude or to live with enjoy, or there's actually no way to teach that. They have to kind of dissolve some of those things that are holding them from being there.
Well, if you tell somebody to be grateful, but they're having in their space and time in their minds baggage, then they sometimes preoccupies their mind. Anything we infatuate with or resent tends to occupy space and time in our mind and run us until we were able to see with our unconscious, bring the unconscious conscious and bring it balanced. And then we're grateful. Anything we're grateful for is fuel. Anything we're not grateful for becomes baggage. And we weigh ourselves down instead of moving ourselves forward again.
Nice. Well, I know that's been beneficial to me. Tell me about, you know that when we were driving over here today, I was talking to you about meditation. And so my experience is that if people become lifelong meditators, that it has an effect, or that it can help people to listen to that. We're very casual here.
They're counting the numbers of people listening.
I'm going to tell the story. Just the guys showed up about 2 hours ago, and they said, "We're running fiber optics today." I said, "No, you can't do that." So that's happening as we're.
That's okay.
As we're doing.
We're bringing enlightenment to people.
We are. That's cute. Yeah. So, you meditate?
I've been meditating since 1972.
Wow.
So I got my first experience in meditation was with Paul Bragg.
Yes.
And he taught us an alpha meditation, how to access an alpha state, alpha theta state. And then around 1973, I was studying all types of books on meditation and experimenting with different things. Then in 75, I met this Indian yogi that also taught me some Jnana Yoga meditational techniques. And then in 75, I also met Maharishi.
The big M.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's the beginning, but it was beginning for me.
The big M,
TM, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got introduced to TM.
Yeah.
And then I also met another Indian teacher, Lakeshwar Ram, when I was 23. And this would have been 1978. And he introduced me to quite a number of different meditation approaches. And then I studied breathing techniques, and I studied physiology, and I was fascinated on the brain. I taught neurology and I taught physiology, so I was very much involved in that. And then over the years, you pick up a book here and there, and you meet people here. And
pick up a book here and there. You're the best, most well-read man I know on the planet.
Yeah. But I've been exposed to various forms of meditation, concentrating on the heart, breathing, postural meditations, all types of meditation. And they all have a contribution, but I really encourage people to use it for an integrative process, not an escape. Because sometimes people use it, I'm stressed, I need to go meditate.
Yes. Instead
of, let's look into the stress and let's find the hidden order in it and discover the magnificence of what's there that we're not seeing, which is why we're stressed, and use meditation as the tool to discover that implicate order and that apparent chaos. And so not escape it, because then you go back to it and you're now even more challenged. But meditation is designed to be mindful. It's designed to be integrative. It's designed to be poise instead of poisoning. And so if it's used wisely, it can myelinate and develop the cortex and the frontal cortex, and allow us to be more governed, allow us to have more awakened, full conscious awareness instead of our subjective biases. It helps us break through some of the things that we are entangled by, and allow us to get unentangled, if you will. So I've been doing meditation. Many times it's on a plane now. That's my sleep sometimes. Sometimes I really have very tight schedules, and I get more out of the meditation than I do out of getting to rest, because it's more restful than rest sometimes.
Yes, yeah. Isn't it? I love how you just described all of those things. I tell people that it helps them to be more present.
More present,
but you
more
said
purposeful.
That. Yeah.
More, I call it present, poised, prioritized, purposeful, productive, and powerful, because you're not run by the outer world. I said many years ago in that secret movie that when the voice and the vision on the inside is louder than and more profound than all the opinions on the outside, you master your life. And it allows you to go inward and strengthen the inner vision and voice instead of the outer opinions and noise that our brain has perceptions, and when we have subjective biases and we have an emotional response, it creates electronic noise activity, entropy in the brain. And our brain intuitively tries to create an anti-memory to try to neutralize it, to bring it back to poise. But we're so preoccupied by the external world that we don't allow it, that intuition and that homeostat, to bring us back into poise. And so meditation gives us the permission to take the time to allow the brain to do that, which enhances the frontal cortex and allows us a greater vision, inner vision. And any detail we leave out of the vision becomes our obstacles in life. And when we can see clearly and articulate that, in voice, that clarity, amazing things synchronize. People, places, things, ideas, events seem to synchronize more
Everything
effectively.
falls in place.
Falls in place.
Yes.
So I think meditation has a place that way.
We talked on the way over about your vision book, and you said it's grown a bit, but what you're talking about right now in meditation to actually spend some time visioning as well, like.
Yeah, I mean, I've explored. I can't say all forms of meditation because I don't know if I know all forms of meditation, but I've certainly explored many. And I use it for different purposes.
Okay.
I'll do various breathing technologies combined with meditation for certain purposes. I'll use visualizations.
So like Kundalini breathing or...
Yeah, I'll do various types of
stuff.
mixtures of things, and some I've explored and experimented with and kind of created my own things. I figured that some teacher, the East or whatever, that may have come up with this doesn't mean somebody can't come up with something new too.
Add on, yeah.
So you got to be an unborrowed visionary, not just a borrowed visionary. And I found that that's allows me to sometimes to solve problems that I didn't even know I was ruminating, and allows me to also not react and more proact. I'm in my forebrain where I'm more foresighted instead of my hindbrain where I'm hindsighted. And the heuristics there are more effective as far as achieving and being productive.
So, because my vision book is really just a stack of 3x5 cards and with that I spend quite a bit of time with on a daily basis of speaking them into existence, but I haven't brought those into my meditation with me.
Yeah, I when I was 18 and I started back to school, because I dropped out of school when I was a teenager, and I began school again. I used to read most of the day, and then at night I would sit in a lotus position, just lay my head down on the ground sideways, and just, in a sense, go through the entire day and take everything that I had learned in the day and imagine myself presenting that. Because I learned that the faster you present something that you learned, the more you retain it, the longer it retains. So I started doing that as a way of recalling. And that was very helpful. So meditation was used as that tool too. So it has many applications. I don't think there's the boundary of the applications, I don't know if I've reached the frontier of.
So those would be back in the days just after you met Mr. Bragg.
Yeah, this was just shortly, months after I met him.
Yes.
Because I started doing meditation and yoga back then.
Yeah. Isn't it great how, finding a teacher can make so much difference? And
well, the trajectory of my life vastly, there's a very, very vast difference before and after. One man, 1 hour, one night with one message turned me in a new direction without a doubt.
Yeah. Well,
and I've had a dream since that night to do the same for others. That's been the whole driving force.
And you have.
Well, I think we've touched at least a couple now.
You have. There's no question about that. I remember I took your 7-day, is it prophecy?
Yeah.
Years ago, and was like, I think I might be actually better able to receive that gift now than I was at that time. It was really overwhelming.
Yeah, that's expanded. It's quite a bit now too.
Has it?
Yeah, that's 3 volumes now of material.
Yes.
So we keep, people go, we're going to have to just go right through the night, it looks like now.
So can you talk a little bit about the power of gratitude?
Yeah, I'd like to think of, so we go through our life and we meet people, or we come across situations or events, and many times we project and evaluate them and interpret them with a subjective bias, and we filter our reality.
Yes. Yeah.
The pulvinar region in our brain is a filtering and gating mechanism based on what we value. So when we evaluate it, it filters out, and we have attention surplus for some things and attention deficit for others.
Based on what we believe to be true or what we value.
What we value, or what our previous subconsciously stored information is and beliefs.
Yeah.
And the beliefs are based on the degree of congruency or incongruency between what we're intending and these values. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is, as we filter them, we sometimes meet people and we put them on pedestals. Mm-hmm. And we are too humble to admit what we see in them is inside us. Mm-hmm. And we exaggerate them, minimize ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then we inject some of their assumed values into our life and cloud us. Mm-hmm. And we try to change ourselves relative to others, which is somewhat futile, because we're not here to live in other people's values. We're here to be authentic to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then we also sometimes meet people and we look down on them, and we exaggerate ourselves and minimize them. We go into pride and maybe resentment to them. Mm-hmm. And now we're too proud to admit what we see in them is inside us. And so anytime we're too humble or too proud to admit what we see in others inside us, we disown those parts, deflect those parts, mm-hmm. Dismember those parts, as Plato would say. And those disowned parts, those voids of emptiness in us, because we're denying them, become the driving force to try to fill them, to have fulfillment in life. So anything we haven't loved, we're driven back to try to find a way of loving it. Mm-hmm. And the moment we actually do love it, we're rewarded with a moment of grace and presence and a sincere authenticity. And that gratitude, when we are able to see both sides of things and have true mindfulness, not bias, not noise, but poise, we liberate ourselves from the bondage of those occupying space and time, infatuation, resentments, and prides and shames. And we go back into equanimity and equity, and we liberate ourselves from that, and we become aware of the hidden order, because there is an order there that we didn't see. Mm-hmm. And the confirmation of the hidden order is grace. And grace, or gratias, or mercy, is this state. And many people have confused gratitude when things go supportive of their values, and then they become, in a sense, disgrace when it goes against their values.
I've learned that that's not true.
Then that's not the true gratitude state. That's kind of an animalistic gratitude state.
Yeah, get what I want.
Get what I want. But a true grace state is when you see that when things are supportive and challenging, they're in pairs of opposites.
Need them both.
And both are needed. Maximum growth and development occurs at the border of those two.
Yes.
And when they're synthesized and synchronized, there's a confirmation with tears of gratitude to letting you know you've now seen the hidden order in the chaos. In that state, that is the maximum potential, maximum awareness, maximum productivity. We maximize ourselves as a human being in that state. So true gratitude is the key that opens up the gateway of the heart and allows a love that's intuitively and inspiringly connected to the universe. So I think, as Wheeler, the professor at Institute of Advanced Studies at Princeton, said, the universe is made out of love. Man has to become awakened to it. Leibniz, centuries ago, nearly 30 years ago, four centuries and 20, 30 years ago, mm-hmm. said that there was a divine perfection, a divine order, a divine beauty, a divine love that few people ever get to see, but those that do, their lives are changed forever. And gratitude is the confirmation that you've now had a glimpse of that. Mm-hmm. A moment of relative enlightenment, not mm-hmm. full enlightenment. We're always on a journey of holy curiosity.
Ego seems to wrap in over top of it.
Yeah, well, it's designed to let us know what we haven't loved, so we get to love that next.
Yes.
And so I think that gratitude is a confirmation that we've now seen things as it is, not as we assumed it was to be, or assumed it was supposed to be, or should be, or whatever. We're not using imperative projections. We're actually inculcating the actuality as it presents itself.
So what seems to have happened for me, and I share with you that I had a couple of tough years, and out of that came this gift. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, a couple of things. One is that I can't judge what's bad or good. There is no, I mean, that's exactly what you're saying. There is no bad or good, or right or wrong in that sense. But an awakening to, some people talk about God, but finding that spot that you're talking about, that almost empty place, that creative place, that place of beauty. All of a sudden, I realized that the idea of all of the names that we've given God they're concepts.
That's a personification.
Yeah,
there's an impersonalization
for that space you just talked about.
Sure, we could call it the elegance of symmetrical beauty. We could call it poise. We could call it equanimity. We could give it the hero with 1,000 names.
Yeah,
but it could be the grand organized design. Divinity means to shine, to illuminate, to become aware. So whatever the name of it is, I'm not attached to it.
No.
But I do believe that gratitude is a confirmation that we're having a glimpse of it.
Yeah.
A glimpse of what's actually there, not what we assumed, projected, or filtered.
Yeah. So to live in gratitude moment to moment is.
Well, I know for myself, I don't live in a total state of grace every day. When I get on a flight, because I've flown over 19 million miles, as you know. So when I get on a flight, sometimes they'll say, well, Dr. Demartini, we've upgraded you, and you're in this seat, and you got this special lounge, and you got this special thing, and I go, thank you. Yeah. And that's the pseudo-gratitude.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll say, Dr. Demartini, somehow we've overbooked, and you won't be able to go today. And I don't go,
what are you doing?
I get my sledgehammer out.
Yeah.
But then after I realize that challenge is there, it could be minutes, it could be hours, it could be days before I come to the realization of the perfection of that.
Yes.
But it's wiser to have the wisdom of the ages without the aging process. Yeah. Entropy, which is the arrow of time, occurs when we're judging. Mm-hmm. It's an entropic gravitational pull to the ground. And when we're radiantly aware and see both sides, we extract out space and time from the mind and go to the state of unconditional love, the soul, if you will. Mm-hmm. And in that state, we have a timeless mind, ageless body, and we have that access if we go into that transcendental state of mind. Mm-hmm. So
Deepak's title.
Yeah, if we take the time to go there, we will then discover it, and we'll have another cosmic chuckle. Mm-hmm. Because we realize that we thought we knew greater than what is.
What is, yeah. And that's the deal.
Well, that's the humbling process of the beauty of life.
Yes.
So the second you start to get puffed up and arrogant in any way, you get humbled.
Yes.
I always say that there's a physiologically, psychologically, sociologically, or theologically, and even immunologically, we are homeostated into the poised state if we don't keep pursuing our fantasies and our delusions. Mm-hmm. So it's everything is trying to get us to that authentic state where we're actualizing and inspired, but we think we have a greater agenda. That's why human will and divine will, or predestination and free will, or contingency, or necessity, or determination, or indetermination, the models of philosophical debate and the dialectic has been leading to that realization. And people go back and forth in their thinking process, but in actuality, everything is trying to get us to that state. Mm-hmm. And having the awareness that that's everything that's going on is on the way, not in the way, is revelatory.
Yes. So what about when we're caught in a victim place, when we're feeling like, like you said, it's on the way, not in the way, but what about when we're caught in a space where we're imagining that life is against us?
Well, what we do is we define, I always say, whatever I'm perceiving, I try to get specific on what I'm perceiving is happening. Because if I run the story and run the racket, I get nowhere. So I stop and I go, what specific trait, action, or inaction am I doing or somebody doing? It usually boils down to something we're perceiving somebody doing. And then I go, where have I done that? And how's it serving me this moment? How's it helping me fulfill what my mission is? And where's the opposite going on? And if the opposite was to go by itself and not this, what would be the drawback? And the quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask. So I ask questions that equilibrate the mind and liberate from that, and then it allows it to, we move through it again without having to be trapped by it. We're no longer victim of history, we're now master of destiny.
So I work with a lot of fellows in the 12-step world, I've been in that for many, many years, and so sometimes it's a whole new language for fellows, and that I work with mostly men, and to help them see, first of all, that everything that came was a gift, and it wasn't against them, and that they played a role in it, actually, by trying to control the circumstances of their life or trying to control the people around them, and most of it seemed to be, it's often fear-based, and I mean, it seems to all be fear-based.
Well, when our values are challenged, we tend to want to constrain that which is challenging us.
Yeah.
When our values are supported, we tend to be receptive.
Yeah.
And we deceive ourselves when we're reacting because we're not honoring the part we're playing. And I always say in no therapy is ever complete until cause equals effect in space-time, and you've extracted out causality and got down to the presence and seen things as it actually was and the role we played in it. And then we're liberated by the illusion, from the illusion.
In your breakthrough, I mean, you really do help people to see all the benefits, over and
or the drawbacks of their fantasies. I'm doing both sides.
Yes.
Because the fantasies are what create the nightmares. The nightmares, the phobias are a result of the philias and the fantasies. And the depressions are a comparison to our fantasies about how life's supposed to be.
Yes.
And we get addicted to those fantasies, and then our depression is trying to help us break that addiction. We don't see it at the time.
Yeah. It's big stuff. I have a little, in the thing that I teach here, around our meditation evenings, is just really simple gratitude, and for everything. So gratitude not just for what we think is the good.
The explicate order.
Yes, and I talk a lot about prayer, because there's something seems to be magic in prayer, and I actually don't know if it's in the prayer or in humility. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I define the highest of prayers is just grace, gratitude. Yes. People go, or sometimes I use it jokingly in Breakthrough, people sometimes project their values onto the universe and expect the universe to match that. It's like the little gnat on the dog trying to tell the dog what to do. And when it's not going that way, they create an anthropomorphism out of the opposite of what they're experiencing and attaching to that because they're feeling powerless. So they create a superpower to hold on to and pray to. And this is basically asking a superpower to change the situation based on their limited understanding.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking deeper
and
discovering what is actually there that's actually magnificent, and discovering the magnificence instead of living in the insignificance, and appreciating it. The highest of prayers is thank you.
Yes.
So gratitude and prayer are inseparable.
Yes.
True prayer.
Yes. Yeah.
It's seeing the order and not denying the intelligence, the panpsychic intelligence that's permeating the universe, as Einstein said, and it's recognizing it and then honoring it by acknowledging it. Not because it needs an acknowledgement, but because it rewards you to the degree that you acknowledge its presence in your own awareness.
Wow. So do you think that on the planet that things are changing? Do you think that more people are waking up? That there's an evolution that's happening?
Well, I think, if we look at the millions of years that humanity has been emerging, I think it's pretty self-evident that we're gradually awakening.
It seems to be this, even in the last 25 years.
It's a slow, steady process, but it
may just be me.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that there's also delusions that get spread too.
Yes.
You know, there's an old proverb that by the time the truth puts on its shoes, the illusions have spread across the world. So filtering through the illusions that dramatize and sell easily. You know, I was doing a CNN TV show one time, and it was not a CNN, a NBC, and it was a financial program. And I was trying to present something that I thought was sound, and the gentleman said, we're not interested in that. We're interested in what sells ratings. And I thought that was an interesting thing. He says, so we have to put sensation and things out there that's not so, because that's what people will be tuning into.
He actually told you that?
Yeah. And I thought, that's interesting. I said, so maybe I don't fit here. And he says, no, you fit here, but we can only have about 10% of what we say that way. The rest of it has to be sensationalism, because it's designed for the average person who's living in their immanent mind.
Yes.
That's reacting with their animalistic subcortical regions of the brain.
They're living in victim.
They're living in the avoid predator, seek prey.
Yes.
So they had a dartboard in the back, and they'd have this printout of these stock reports, stock things, and they'd throw a dart at it, and wherever it hit, they would say, "This is the hot stock." and it was the Dow Jones averages, the Winnie the Pooh style, you know.
Yes.
So it was kind of a big awakening for me to see that, because I thought that they would actually want something that was
researched.
Something sound and objective. Someone like Warren Buffett might, but the average person is just interested for the little hot tip that they can go around and talk about. But, I mean, when I ask people how many want to be financially independent, everybody puts their hands up, but less than 1% actually obtain it. So most people are actually not aware of what their real hierarchy of values are, and they're pursuing things that don't match it, and they're feeling incongruent, and they got noise in the brain, and they're self-depreciating, and the self-depreciation is trying to get them back onto what is true, but they're addicted to a fantasy of one-sidedness instead of embracing life's pair of opposites.
So you teach about money. You know, I have been with you, and you help people to get a balanced idea around money, and also learn how to be grateful for and manage and to save, or I don't know if we call it saving, invest, and I think you've been very successful at that yourself. And can you give us like a 3 or 4 minutes on an attitude towards money that
Yeah.
I think people in this town are interested in that
Right now.
Yes.
It fluctuates with how fluid the oil is.
Well, sure it does. I mean, if things are fat and sassy, nobody's listening. I think everybody's listening right now.
Well, you know, it was Hubert Howe Bancroft.
Yes.
Who wrote a book called the Book of Wealth. It was a 10-volume set.
Yeah. You came in a crate.
Yeah, I had it, and there were 3 things that stood out in those individuals or those institutions or organizations that became very fortunate. They felt by divine providence that they were destined to serve vast numbers of people. And my experience is people, because everybody has a set of priorities and set of values, when people live congruently with what's highest, and they prioritize their life, and they delegate lower priority things to others, and give permission for others to be engaged in economics to help them do what they love. And they're doing something they can't wait to get up in the morning and do. They're inspired. They're walking and they're talked that way. They're resilient, they're adaptable, and they're more objective and more poised. And they also realize that what they say, they end up doing. They're more walking of talking. And as a result of it, they feel confident to want to serve people and contribute to people because they feel fortunate. And so people who feel that they have vast numbers of people to contribute to, because when people say they want to be wealthy, and if they don't have a desire to be of service to people, I always wonder where they're going to get their income. Because it comes from serving people.
Yes.
And it comes from a state of equanimity, because if you're proud, you'll talk down and not listen to people and their needs. And if you're minimizing, you'll sacrifice profits. But if you're in equanimity and equity, then the world of finance rewards you for being in an authentic state. And that's why spirituality and materiality are not separated, as many people foolishly think. They're actually one and the same. Because the mastery of your spiritual equanimity is also the mastery of state for having fair exchange that's sustainable in economics. Economics and theology actually came from an axiological study, which is a study of value and worth. And so goods and services are in economics, but goods and services are in theology. And so when a person feels that they're called to serve vast numbers of people and they really care about people, because I remember speaking at a church and I said, if you're poor, it's because you're not caring about people. Because if you care about them, you'll find a way of serving them and then reciprocate.
I'll bet you ran into a little resistance with that.
Well, they just kind of looked and thought about it.
Yeah. What do you mean I don't care?
But because if you really care, you'll find direct or indirect means to serve and fulfill the needs of other people. And that's not an altruistic sacrifice. It's not a narcissistic pursuit. It's a sustainable fair exchange where you're neither. You're neither narcissistic or altruistic. You're just in fair exchange. They also found, Bancroft also found that they had a desire to elevate the standards of society. So they would invest in inspiration, not rescue desperation.
Yes, yes.
So in other words, if you meet a person who's a great painter and you see an incredible talent, instead of buying a cheap painting and rewarding somebody who's not really talented, you reward the person that's really doing something extraordinary, which elevates and makes everybody move up the scale.
Yeah, Whittles talks about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Wallace Wattles talked about that,
Yeah.
exactly. And when you do that, you're investing in the highest capacities of people instead of the amygdala's dopamine-driven desires for that which is unobtainable and trying to avoid that which is unavoidable state.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the third one was that they had transcended the morality of money. Because people who are infatuated with it and call it good will never manage it. And the people that are calling it bad will never receive it to manage. But the people that have transcended it and realize that it's amoral, it's just a means of measuring the services that's rendered.
It's a vehicle.
And it's a representation of credit in the consciousness of people. Allows you to actually realize that it is to be mastered as a spiritual mastery. I think all 7 areas of life are here for us to be mastered. And any area of life we're not empowered in, people will overpower us to frustrate us, to get us to master it. And they all revolve around our spiritual quest, what inspires us.
So in Imperius, we deal with the 7 areas?
The prophecy.
Prophecy, okay, sorry. Could you tell us again the 7 areas?
Well, I believe that there are 7 areas of life and 7 powers that go with it. One is our spiritual quest, which is our inspired mission, the thing we feel, our métier, our calling that we feel like we're here for.
Yes.
The other is our mind development. So we're here to create and awaken our genius, our innovations, our creativity, and original ideas that serve humanity. Because an unborrowed visionary is not somebody that subordinates to conformity on the outside. They originate inner inspirations.
Like Elon.
Elon is a good example.
Yes.
Then there's also our business quest, the willingness to be of service to people and do it in such sustainable fair exchange that it perpetuates itself and creates an immortal legacy. And the next one is, I call these the 7 areas of immortality also. Each of these are. Because we can create ideas that last beyond our life. We create business beyond our life. We can create wealth, which is the next one. Financial independence. Financial independence was not designed to go and hang out in pleasure and hedonism, because that usually destroys people over time, immediate gratification instead of long-term vision. It's to find meaningful service that's inspiring to you, and then earning the income and saving it and investing it wisely. So you're not a slave to money, you're a master to money. It's working for you instead of you working for it.
Yeah. You know, our friend Gary Vee talks about that a lot. He says, put it back in, invest, because he's talking to a lot of young entrepreneurs who are making big dough in their first 3 or 4 years, and they're buying, Lamborghinis and
They're looking for immediate gratification and buying consumables that depreciate in value, which undermines. And money circulates through the economy from those who value it least to those who value it most. And the people who value it most are most objective with it. And the ones that value it least are most emotional with it.
Ah,
And so emotions don't build wealth.
no.
Animals don't usually build wealth. The animal nature of our nature. It's the thing that distinguishes us from that is the meaning, and finding meaning and the pursuit of something that's a cause. The greater the cause, the greater the wealth. If we have zero money saved and we add $1, it's 100% of that dollar to value. If we have $10 saved, we add $1, it's 10%. 100, 1%. 1,000, 0.1%. A million is 0.0001%. So as we accumulate money, the value of additional dollars go down. And so if we don't have a cause to drives us to yearn to go and do something of service to earn the money, we will end up plateauing and buying junk and just filling our life with things that are immediate gratifying and depreciable. So your real value of yourself and real value of serving and real value on wealth is the ability to contribute to an ever greater cause that's meaningful to you with the money. That's an essential component. But after money, then there's relationship and the desire to face yourself. The purpose of marriage is not happiness, as many people fantasize. The purpose of marriage is to actually face yourself and actually come to the authentic self.
Yes.
Because if you're cocky, they'll criticize you. If you're humble, they'll lift you up. If you're yourself, they'll love you.
Yes.
And it's forcing you to learn how to be yourself. And so that's also a spiritual mastery. And then there's social contribution, being a leader and being able to influence people. And that requires the caringness with equanimity to find out what their values and needs are and to communicate what you value in terms of what they value. No leader can sustain autocratically as a tyrant unless they learn eventually to mix that monopoly into also a democracy and put those in equilibrium. And so